Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? I'm sorry, I should have started sooner. I only worked half of the room. I would like to meet all of y'all. I like to put a face to a name and meet who I'm speaking to and with. My name is Judy Lenzik. I'm the FTE and class size manager. And I'll be doing a presentation on the class size reporting, and following this will be the FTE. Now, this presentation is more of a review for those of you who have been doing class size reporting for several years, and it'll be a good introduction also for those who are new at it. Hopefully next year they will allow me to do a different presentation, because I know this presentation has been the same presentation that has been presented to previous famous conference. I will try to get a different presentation for next year. So hopefully for those of you who have attended many famous conferences, that look forward to having a new presentation next year. We're going to cover, here's the overview of this presentation. We're going to cover a lot of different formats and tables that we use for class size processing. I'll discuss what's included and what's excluded of the class size calculations. I'll talk about the survey processing reports and the type of technical assistance and applications and websites that you can use to help you determine if your class size calculations were performed correctly. Okay, class size changes for the next school year. Last year, school year 2020 and 2021, due to the pandemic, the DOE commissioner fortunately decided to waive the class size penalty. So none of the non-compliant districts receive any penalties. DOE cannot waive class size requirements because that is determined by Florida statute. But the commissioner can decide to waive the penalties. So with that, I need to make an announcement that this coming school year, the class size penalty will be applied. And just to remind everybody and to refresh everybody's minds, the maximum students allowed for pre-K to third grade is 18, and it's maximum 22 students for grades 4 through 8. I had to look this up, I can't remember. Maximum 25 students in grades 9 through 12. Formats, elements, and tables used in class size reporting. There are several of them. Okay, the most important one is the student course schedule format, because we need to know where the students are. And then the second one is the teacher course format, because that's how we match the students to the teachers and determine the class size. It's pretty self-evident. Okay, classroom ID and fish number. We use, when I say we, that's DOE, and you are the districts. We, the DOE, we use the FISH, which stands for Florida Inventory of Schoolhouse Number, which is the class size ID. This is really important, along with the teacher course records, because we use the class size FISH ID to determine the class size calculations. The reported facility files are generated twice a day, first thing in the morning and then at noon. So if you had uploaded it the previous day, it'll be available that morning, and then we again generate it at noon if you happen to upload it the following morning. And that's the file format that you can download, and where you can go and check to see if your class size calculations are reported correctly. Other tables, we have the master school ID table and the course code directory. The master school ID is the MSID, which lists what type of schools they are. That's important because it determines how the class size is going to be calculated. Class size is calculated differently for traditional schools and school of choice and charter schools. So the MSID determines your facility type. And then we have the course code directory, which lists all the course that's available throughout the state. And it also determines which one are core courses. And the core courses are used for the class size calculation. And I need to inform you that although it doesn't change much, the core codes directly can change, and it can change on a weekly basis. So periodically, please go and download this file so you can check, make sure what are considered core courses, so it doesn't surprise you. You can also contact the core course office. If you don't know who your contacts are, I'll give you my contact at the end of the PowerPoint slide. And you know that always that very popular Ask Ease email. Anytime you have a question, just send it to ask@FLDOE.org. That is a very popular and most used email address for the DOE. If you have any questions, it doesn't matter what it's related to. It doesn't matter if it's funding, if it's ESE, if it's class size, if it's FTE. It will go to a group distribution list, and we will forward it to the appropriate contact persons, because just like I was speaking to somebody, we have turnovers and it's hard to remember who your contact person is. And then especially my name, Judy Lenzik, it's hard to spell my last name. But Ask Ease, you get any DOE person. Just send it to that one email address. Okay, now we're going to go to special scheduling. This one in particular, this doesn't occur very often. Is if the entire school has no class schedule on Friday. And yes, we do have schools that do not have any core courses scheduled on Friday. And so if there's no core courses scheduled on Friday, that doesn't mean that you don't have a class scheduled on Friday during survey week. We're talking about the entire school not having any core courses scheduled on Friday. And that could be due to lots of varying reasons. They're doing block scheduling. There are some classes that are scheduled on Mondays and Tuesdays, and those are usually the ESE courses. Just need to make sure that for the day of the week, if it's an alternate scheduling, that you put a Y in there. So we pick that up correctly and perform the class size calculation correctly. Now, the second one, let me see if I can have the mouse here. The second one here at the bottom where it says, this doesn't apply to schools not operating on Friday during survey week. That's when you have one particular course, not an entire school, that doesn't meet on Friday. So for that course, you want to make sure you select an alternate day for your date certain. And it's not that DOE doesn't like Mondays or any other days of the week. We had to pick one particular day, and they happened to choose Friday. Okay, the steps in class size calculations. The class size calculation is really simple. The DOE, we've been doing this for many years. The DOE, the agency, has set up algorithms to already perform class size calculations. It's a really complicated math. So if you load your data correctly, it will calculate it correctly. There's only 6 steps in the class size calculations, and 5 of them applies to most schools, because that goes to the traditional school and the school of choice. The 6 steps is only applicable to the charter schools. Okay, so hopefully I'm going to do an example, and I apologize if you guys see this example before. It's, but again, I promise I'll try to do a different presentation next year. So the example they've created was at Mrs. Johnson's 7th grade math class. And there's 20 students in Mrs. Johnson's class. It's in room 101 in term 1 in period 4. The first step, okay, so right now, Mrs. Johnson is out of compliance. The most important thing is that you need to make sure that you record the student course records the same as you record the teacher course record, or they won't match and they won't be calculated correctly. So you have to make sure that the teacher course record is coded for math, 7th grade math class, room 101, term 1, period 4, along with the student course records. Here are the different type of scheduling methods. This PowerPoint will be, as always, be loaded up to the famous conference website. So you'll be able to see all of this in detail. Most of you are probably very familiar with the scheduling methods already. If not, your superintendents are and the principals. You have A for the alternate week, and B for block scheduling. But most of the ones that we see that the districts used are the one that are in circle. A for the alternate week, C for co-teaching, I for, actually stands for in class, one-on-one, but we normally coin it as inclusion, and M for multiple use classroom. So back to Mrs. Johnson's example, this is how the class size calculation will be performed on her. Okay, so step one in the class size calculation is you count the number of students in each course within each class. So in this room 101, term 1, period 4, there are 23 students in the 7th grade math course. And we chose this as an example because math is typically a core course. Okay, so one of the mistakes that we see is sometimes you'll have 2 courses reported in the same room at the same time, which will throw off your class size calculation in a negative way. And you don't want that. So the second thing that we do is we determine the main course. In this particular example, the main course is math. See, I want to make sure I covered everything correctly. Yes. Okay, so the next step is step 3. We determine the main grade in the main course. In Mrs. Johnson's grade in class right here, we have several grades. We have 19 7th grade students and 4 6th grade students. Those 6th grade students may have been moved up, and so they get allowed to take Mrs. Johnson's class. So since 19 is greater than 4, the main grade would be 7, even though 6 and 7 happen to be in the same grade group. We still make that determination to make sure you win. I remember correctly again, 18 for PK to 3, 22 for 4 to 8, and then 25 for 9 through 12. A good example of this would be if there was some 9th graders in here. Instead of them making this example as 4 in the 6th grade, it'd be 4 in the 9th grade. Maybe you have 4 students that got held back and had to retake the class. But the majority of the grade will be used as the main course, or rather the main grade in the main course, and then we'll use that maximum class size requirements to perform the calculation. Step 4, we determine if the classroom for the main course is a core course. I don't know why they made that step 4. They should have made that step 1, but that's step 4. They determine if it's a core course. Then we're going to go. This example is going to show how the scheduling method of you can utilize the different scheduling method in order to bring your class size into compliance. So we originally had 23 students, but when the class size calculation was performed on Mrs. Johnson's class, we ended up coming up with 21 students. And how did that happen? Well, that happened because we have three of the students are inclusion students. In this example, they're ESE students, and they happen to have a teacher that comes in and also gives them a one-on-one in that class. So we have 20 students in scheduling method S, which is the in-class, self-contained in-class, and 3 students in scheduling method I for the inclusion. So The 3 will be divided by the total number of teachers in that classroom. This would be 3 divided by 2, which you get 1.5. But you can't half the body, so, or any fractions. So anything, any of the decimal, we round down. And that's helpful to you, a benefit to you. So the 3 inclusion students will come down from 1.5, round it down to 1. That would give Mrs. Johnson 21 students. And now she's found to be in compliance. If Mrs. Johnson is in a traditional classroom, then we would stop, because only steps 1 through 5 are applied to traditional schools and school choice. If she was in a charter school, then they would go, okay, misspoke. The class size average is different for school of choice and charter school, because the school of choice and charter school are done in a class size average. I'm sorry, I misspoke. So if the Mrs. Johnson happened to be a school of choice or charter school, then they actually do a different calculation. They divide the total students in all the core courses for each grade group, and then they divide by the total number of classrooms of that core course instruction. And then they obtain an average for the school. Again, it's a really complicated math. I really still don't understand how it works, but like I said, if you code your classes, your student course records correctly, and you teach your course record correctly, the math will come out. The algorithm will work. In the class size exclusions, there are several exclusions. Here, they're excluded by facility types: hospitals, corrections, and home, or other non-owned by school districts. And those are usually the core course number that begins with an alpha character. I forgot to ask you all to not to raise any questions, although none of y'all are speaking up, which is good, because I have 30 slides and hopefully I'll have enough time to cover it all. I've timed myself and it usually takes me 30 minutes. I think there's 45 minutes allocated to this presentation, which it gives me 1 minute per side. So. Okay, so these are the facility type that are excluded, and they're completely excluded from the class size calculation right up front. More class size exclusions are the school number. We exclude the McKay, the FES, which is the Florida Empowerment Scholarships, and the virtual schools. And this is the district virtual schools. We also exclude District 68, which is the Florida Deaf and Blind, and District 71, which is the Florida virtual school. And the school setting is also another thing that they use to review to do exclusion. The school's functioning, if it's a DJJ, which is Department of Juvenile Justice, or any virtual class. One main thing I need to point out is if you have a student that's enrolled in both an inclusion and a non-inclusion course, we're only going to count the inclusion students and make the adjustment for the non-inclusion. This would be like if you have a student attending a traditional class and also taking virtual courses. More class size exclusions. We exclude duplicate class in the same class. If they, like I mentioned before, if they happen to be in both enroll in inclusion and a non-inclusion course. Also for dual enrollment and blended learning. Blended learning is really important that you code this correctly, and you have to make sure you put a Y to note that, or denote that it's a blended learning. All of these are excluded right off the top of the class size. They're not included in the class size calculation at all. Okay, more class size exclusion. We got if the period ends when 88, or if the days of the week is not equal to Friday, or non-occurring courses. Of course, if they're not occurring, they're not going to be included. But the code that ends the core course code that ends with 88. It's usually a non-standard meeting time. And typically we see that this is for therapy courses or ESE courses. And then we've already talked about if the day of the week doesn't equal to Friday. Here are the common data reporting errors. Yes, I'm the FTE and class size manager, and I do data quality analysis on your data. And these are the common reporting errors that we see. We see missing co-teacher records, incorrect period or fish number reported. We see missing inclusion teacher records not reported, and also, and most importantly, blended learning not correctly coded. So if you don't have any of this coded correctly, it's going to possibly throw you out of compliance in a negative way. So you should definitely review all of these course records. The missing co-teacher record, that's really important, because if you're missing a co-teacher record, then we're only going to calculate it with one teacher. So that's going to throw your average off. And so you need to make sure you have two teachers coded for the same classroom so that we'll actually calculate both teachers. And you also have to have the correct scheduling method. And you having that C, co-teacher. So you have to have both the appropriate number of teachers reported and the type of scheduling. Incorrect period and fish reported. If you report the incorrect fish number, this will definitely throw your class size calculation off. We typically see this if you report a whole room with the same fish number. So you need to make sure you use a unique fish number for each class. Missing inclusion teacher record is similar to the co-teacher. So make sure you do code the inclusion teacher. Did it get quiet up here all of a sudden? And the air just got stagnant. I was like, oh, I'm burning up here. The light is shining on me. Okay, so if you're missing the inclusion teacher record, that will throw your calculation off. So please double check that the rooms have multiple teachers or a special scheduling method so that everybody and all the teachers reported correctly, so the class size calculation would be reported correctly. Can't stress enough on blended learning the field. We see this often that the teacher course record is missing the Y to denote that it's a blending. We can't blended learning is excluded from class size, but we cannot exclude it from class size unless you report it as blending. We cannot change any codes for you. We are not privy, have access to your data. We only pull and extract the data that you load. And then I do have a staff that perform the data quality review on the data that you reported. And as I've spoken to some of the districts, yeah, you are getting emails from me now. And when I became the class size manager and FTE manager, I made the decision that you will have one singular contact person, and that's me, versus it used to be, delegated to the EIS, your EIS district liaisons. But so now you're getting for class size and FTE, you're getting it from me, which was a lot of effort for me to take, because there's 4 reports that gets done on a weekly basis for FTE and numerous reports that get done for class size calculations. But you will be receiving an email from me, directly from me from now on. And hopefully when I do move on, that the new FTE manager will make the same decision. I think it's been helpful. I've been getting positive feedback from the districts that it's helpful that you're having one contact person. And also, I'm always available to call me. You can always call me. And several districts have called me and I've spoken to you. Now I'm going to do an overview of the class size process and resources. And bear with me, we're at slide 21, almost, we're halfway there. So there are two surveys that we perform class size calculations for, Survey 2 and Survey 3. This represents the whole school year. Survey 2 is the first half of the school year. Survey 3 is the other half. Survey 2 has always been traditionally the most important survey because that's where finance, the Office of Finance, funds the reduction allocation, and that, very important word, penalties are applied. So most of the districts are very honed in on Survey 2. But I need to stress to you that Survey 3 is also important, because just because you're in compliance in Survey 2 doesn't mean you don't have to be in compliance in Survey 3. We still run the reports and we still do review and assessment. And I report to leadership as to which districts are in compliance in Survey 2 and Survey 3. And we never know what's going to happen in the future, but it can also affect your appeals. Because if we tell you you're out of compliance in Survey 2 and you do nothing about it, and you're out of compliance in Survey 3, that looks really bad on you, especially when you're submitting an appeal and you're consistently out of compliance, both surveys, multiple years. I don't make that decision to reject your appeal. I just review your data and report to leadership how you have been performing. Fortunately, statewide, statistically, most of the state are in compliance. We typically only have 2%. That 2% are the districts that are greatly affected. So I just have to stress that even though you're not being financially, assessed and penalized in Survey 3, you are still being assessed in your performance. And I know the slides have been brought up many times. Mr. Bowen had asked me to stress this to you all about the end of state processing period. Last week was survey week. So yes, you all received an email from me Monday with FTE for Survey 4. And you'll get it for Survey 2 also. But what I need to bring up about the state processing and the end of state processing. Per the database manual, it states that the districts must have your data as clean as possible by the end of state processing period. And Mr. Bowen wanted me to stress to you why this is important, because we're starting to see a trend in districts waiting for the amendment period to actually doing their data reporting. Some of them would just submit a single file for initial batch so that you're in, and then actually we'll be performing data reporting during the amendment period. And that's not the purpose of the amendment period. The amendment period is technically truly for making correction. There shouldn't be this fury of rush at the last week of the survey. And we're seeing that. We're seeing very high number of FTE in error and FTE to be null at the end of state processing. And then same thing with class size calculation. And the reason it's important for the districts to get your data as correctly as possible by the end of at the end of the state survey processing date, because we, DOE, receive a lot of data requests, mainly from legislation. And the legislations are looking at modeling, they're looking at performance, they're looking at funding allocations, and this actually can determine how your district is being viewed and the entire state performance, the Department of Education, because you all are representing education for the state of Florida. So your performance and you may be great, but you're not reporting your data as accurately as possible by the end of the state processing period. guess what? Ad hoc reports are being pulled. But it's not a true representation of the state's data. And so leadership had asked me to implore and plead to you, please, 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 please make sure your data is as clean as possible and accurate as possible by the end of state processing period. Mr. Bowen asked me to propose this question to you. What if the amendment period goes away? What if we start limiting the amendment period or even shortening the amendment period? So please code your data in during the state processing period. Don't wait till the amendment period. Even though you all do technically have to the end of closing of survey to do amendments. Again, there's several process that goes on behind the scene, and that's what he wanted me to bring up and stress that to you all. And I'll discuss that more too in the FTE's presentation. Okay, the overview of the steps of class size processing. So at the beginning, we've got before survey 2 even starts, we have class size trial runs. There are 3 class size trial runs in survey 2. There are no class size trial runs for survey 3. I'm sorry, I'm only one person. It's just so much to do. So we do class size trial runs in survey 2 only now, and there's 3. Participation is not mandatory, but we strongly encourage districts that were in non-compliance the prior year to please use your class size trial runs, so that way you can start looking at your data earlier and start addressing it earlier. We'll send an ASCII email. Somebody asked me, how do you get to be on the list of the ASCIIs? Send an email to ASCIIs, ask@fldoe.org, and ask to receive these ASCIIs email, right? And then again, I instructed the district to identify themselves, their position, and what group and what type of reports you like to receive from ASCIIs, because ASCIIs does not go out to all groups. There's ASCIIs for all different type of reports. You know, there's funding, there's ESE, scholarships. I sent out ASCIIs for class size and also for FTE. Ms. Teresa Sanko sends it out for other data reporting, but the entire department used that ASCIIs to set it, and they select different groups and the listserv. So when you want to be part of that ASCIIs, recipient of that ASCII's notification email, you need to identify what reports you want to be notified for. So we'll send out an ASCII emails with the list of the trial runs, and that usually occur around mid-August. And I'll send a reminder. I'll do an assessment of which districts did participate in the first trial run. I'll send you a reminder that you still have the second trial run and when that'll occur. And I'll do another assessment if who has participated in one and both, in 1 and 2. And I'll send another reminder that the class size trial run, the third one, is about to begin, and this is your last opportunity to participate. So after we have the class trials run, we actually start performing the true class size calculations for the class size processing. And these class size processing, the reports are run weekly. It's from the data from the preceding week that you've loaded up to the preceding Friday. Then you get all the reports are available on Monday. I have a slide, a listing of all the class size reports. So again, the class size, well, one of the things I need to stress is they call it the class size data quality application. I coin it as a class size website application. It's one and the same. What I need to stress to you is that all the data that you submit, other than the trial run, gets refreshed on a weekly basis. That class size website application gets refreshed weekly with the same data that you reported. It's just in a different format to view. Some people like seeing that. I was told that many years ago, it wasn't, that class size website application was not open to the districts or the charter schools, but now it is. So definitely take advantage of that class size data quality application. So we have, to continue on the class size process, we have the survey closing, then the final class size calculation is performed. And again, this is very important for survey 2, because that's when the penalties are applied. And then we will determine, the FTE class size unit will determine which districts are in non-compliance. And we send that report to the Office of Funding and Financial Reporting. All districts that are found out of compliance must submit a signed class size compliance plan by the due date that finance established. I don't establish that schedule. My main role is data quality. I'm doing assessments of your data as it pertains to class size and later FTE that I'll be speaking about, and I report that to leadership. So my main, Ms. Teresa Sanko actually will do more of the data reporting from you all. And she reports the edits that you all receive. I only receive the report as it pertains to class size and FTE funding. So we have daily processing, and then the amendment window occurs. Once that's done and the survey closes, that is the final data that is used for the to determine the class size compliance. So when the reports are run the last time after we close the survey, the amendment window, typically most of you already and I were very familiar with the close of survey, and I'm happy that they keep it the same date. It's December the 15th for survey 2. I just remember the 15th. There's a lot of surveys that end on the 15th. We will do a final data run, and we will provide the report to you. In previous years, the districts that they only sent notification through districts in non-compliance. I had made the decision that not only should I make a notation of poor performance, but I should also make a notation of good performance. I've been setting personal little notes in my emails now, and when you actually achieve FTE nulls, and then I also will now send an email at the end notifying you that you were in compliance, so that you do get a confirmation now for the good that you did do it. Great job. I love sending out those wonderful emails instead of all the negative emails. So they thank you for being in compliance. Now, then we get, after the districts are found in non-compliance, you get a chance to submit an appeal. You get to submit an appeal for either data reporting errors or extenuating circumstances as of last year with the pandemic. But what I need to stress to you about the data reporting, since we'll be sending you weekly reports on your class size, you really should try to fix your class size data reporting errors before the survey closes. Even though you have an opportunity to correct your class size reporting data after the survey closes, you have to do it in the class size appeals website application, which I've heard is not very user friendly. It's very clunky. It's very difficult to find that one particular class that you need to adjust. So last year, even though class size penalty was waived, we did an assessment. We contacted every district, and every district corrected their data reporting before the closest survey. Great job. And we want to see that consistently every year. That was a lot of effort on the FTE and class size team. I applaud you all. We can only earnestly appeal to you to fix your error. We cannot fix the error for you. We cannot do that. I wish we could. I used to be in another role. I've been a database manager for many years. I'm new to DOE, but like I've told people, I'm not new to the state. This is just a new agency for me. And I've been a database manager. If I tell you how many years, I'll date myself. I won't mention it. Like, I love the commercial that says, you know, age is just a number and my number is unlisted. I used to freely tell you my age, but I'm not going to do that anymore. So I've been doing it for a couple of decades, let's put it this way. So I'm pretty experienced in database management. So please correct your data reporting error before the close of survey so you don't have to do it in that class size appeals application. The memo will get sent out by the Office of Finance. Actually, it's going to be sent out by the commissioner, a memo from the commissioner, and it will establish the date when the appeals are due and the process of doing it. Here's the class size website application I've been telling you. I have it in red. I've sent out an email, if any of you remember, to ask you if you have access or if you could access this new link. They've updated the class size website application due to the FLDOE issue. Since last year was the first year they actually implemented FLDOE, even though they've been talking it for many years. The class site website application has been updated to now not reflect the social security number of students. So I asked them to include as many years as possible, and they said they could only go back to 2018. So 2018, it might be 2 or 3 years. 2018, I think it's 2018 and 18, 19, 19, 20, and 2021, and moving forward, we'll just have the FLDOE, and those are the only data that will be on the class size website application. You won't be able to see prior years. But here's here's how it looks like. The class size website application, you have to get your district single sign-on administrator to grant you access. And the charter school, you need to contact the districts to get that single sign-on access. And we really encourage the districts to go look at this website. It's really a nice website. I really like it. It's much better than the tables. It comes down to your preference. This class site website application contains the exact same data in the reports that I send you. It's just in a different view. And I can, if you, when the memo goes out that class size, there'll be a memo that gets sent out, and you could always contact me how to navigate to this class size website application. But once you get logged on, you select your district. Then you select that particular school. There's a hyperlink for the particular school. And this is really nice. Then when you click on that particular school, it opens up the classroom and the period. And it lists all the students that are reported for that course. Again, I said reported, not necessarily enrolled. So this is a way for you to visually check, okay, were the data reported correctly? Did you report all your students correctly? Did you report it correctly in the correct in the correct classroom? Because the class size website application also shows the school average, even for traditional school, even though that's not how the traditional schools are being calculated. Because some districts have seen that, hey, if my traditional school gets reassigned as a school of choice, what you can do, how that process get done, I will have to send you to a different office, because there's a different way. It has to be a district operated school of choice. And there's different criteria that you have to qualify for or do in order to get your school designated as a school of choice. But that'll change how your class size is being calculated. Again, we ask that the district please give the charter school access to this. The districts can view all the classes in their district, including the charter school, but the charter school can only view their school. But having the charter school having access to this, and the data quality report that will be sending out to you weekly. Last year, I made a decision to send the charter school directly. I located the charter school contact list, and I have sent them directly their own reports. So years before, the districts, it was incumbent onto the districts to forward the charter school their reports. I've made the decision to send it directly to the charter school themselves, so they'll be aware of it, and they can address their class size earlier on. Here are the list of class size reports, and there are a lot of them. I've had the top 2 highlighted because those are the most useful. The F7-0408 shows you the school level average for all schools in the district, and it tells you if these if you're in compliance or not. There's a section for charter school also in that report. Make a note that it shows you the school level average, but it identify which schools are. Oh, I am so sorry. I was just told that we're over time. So now, this is speaking slow. I'm going to go in. I only have 3 more slides real quick. I'll just talk about these 2 reports. The second report here shows who's in compliance and who's not in compliance. Again, these PowerPoint will be made available to you after the presentation. There's a list more of class size reports that are available. The main thing that we wanted to show you here, that they are still available, even the old reports. They get generated weekly, and they're available the following Monday. And you can take a look at them. Some districts may still use them. I'm almost done. There's a technical assistant document. This is the link for it. You can contact me and I can show you how to navigate to it. The document is really helpful. It gives you a detail in the class size algorithm calculations that's performed. It gives you a list of all the reports that are available and the frequently asked questions. Those are really handy. And last but least, here's my contact. That's my name, judy.lenzik@FLDOE.org. And how I always tell everybody to remember my name, it's cubic zirconic, CZYK. And for the financial penalty, Josh Bemis is still the contact person for the Office of Finance. And I'm sorry I went over your time because I started late. Thank you for your time. I'm available for thank you. I'm available for if anybody wants to have any questions or anything you want to discuss with me. I'm just gonna stop the recording real quick. Just let stop.